Hi, my name is Valere Demelier, and today I'll be looking at why Ivory Coast is a failed state. First off, a state is a political entity consisting of borders, a government, and a population. A nation is a large group of people who identify themselves with the same culture, language, and ancestral history. Therefore, a nation-state is a sovereign state in which the majority of the population share the same culture, language, or ancestral history. And nationalism, simply put, is a patriotic feeling or principle. The Foreign Policy magazine uses criteria and indicators to judge if a country is weak or failed. There are three categories for indicators that Foreign Policy magazine uses to label a country. They are political, social, and economic, and military. Uh, the ones that are most important to my country, Ivory Coast, are the political and social ones, specifically group grievance and state legitimacy. Group grievance is when tension and violence exist between groups. This is important because in Ivory Coast, in recent history, Ivory Coast has suffered from a civil war. With over 60 ethnicities, violence breaks out often. Another indicator is state legitimacy. State legitimacy is essentially corruption in the government, which measures things such as power struggles. In recent history, Ivory Coast have had power struggles as former President Laurent Gbagbo refused to leave office and killed thousands of people trying to hold it. In the 21st century, there is a large connection between state fragility and global security. Fragile states in this day and age can often be seen as a major threat to global security. This is because failed states are a breeding ground for extremists and disease, and they can often allow for drug trade, armed trade, and human trafficking. Therefore, strong states must help weak states for their own well-being and for the well-being of global security. But why do states fail? States often fail because they're convoluted with internal violence and state illegitimacy. They become unable to produce positive political goods. In my country, state legitimacy and group grievance are two issues that matter most. Laurent Gbagbo, former president, refused to leave office and killed thousands to hold his position, and many people did die in Ivory Coast because of their ethnicity, a group grievance issue. These two issues hold Ivory Coast back from developing as there's too much violence in the country and it is just not a safe enough place for political good to come out of. The politics and culture of a country often do matter much more than the degree of failedness. I believe this because the degree of failedness is relative to other countries, and when you're talking about a failed country doesn't fail. You can't compare one country to another when talking about failedness. Each country has its own issues that are completely different circumstances. However, there are advantages to ranking states. The advantages are it isolates and simplifies the country's situation and helps us analyze it, as well as spreading the word about the country rather than just ignoring the problem as a whole. However, the failed states index can also be seen as useless and not very logical. This is because the failed states index only highlights the negative aspects of the country, and it compares countries to each other, which is impossible. Each country has its own different problems. The failed states index also measures it only measures the symptoms, but not the causes nor the cure. In recent news in Ivory Coast, plans for truth and reconciliation talks, which is a demonstration of sovereignty and nationalism. This is a demonstration of nationalism because leaders try to appease the violence and unite the people into one nation. It is also a demonstration of sovereignty because they show that they can enforce their own laws and their own practices within their own borders. Due to these factors, such as group grievance and state illegitimacy, Ivory Coast is a failing state.